Welcome to the Warfront Stories World War II channel. Subscribe to our channel because every day we publish stories about the valor of American soldiers based on real events. Support us. Like our videos if you like what we do for you. December 7, 1941, 0748, Pearl Harbor, Oahu, Hawaii. The sky is clear blue, almost mockingly serene. The USS Arizona sits in the harbor alongside other battleships of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. Most of the 1,512 men aboard are just beginning their morning routines. Some are still asleep after shore leave, others eating breakfast in the mess hall. Seaman First Class Donald Stratton has just finished breakfast and is heading up to his battle station in the port anti-aircraft director. The air smells of salt, steel, and brewing coffee. No one knows that in exactly 2 minutes, their world will transform into a hellscape that will haunt survivors for the rest of their lives. The previous evening had been ordinary. Men returned from Liberty and Honolulu, some stumbling back slightly intoxicated from an evening at the Black Cat Cafe or the Devil's Den tattoo parlor. They exchanged jokes about weekend conquests and complained about Monday morning inspections. The ship settled into its nighttime routine. Somewhere aboard, Yeoman Second Class Theodore Chandler wrote a letter home, mentioning clear skies and palm trees. The letter would never be mailed. 0750. The distinctive high-pitched whine of Japanese aircraft engines cuts through the peaceful Sunday morning. Dive bombers, 183 of them, followed by fighters and torpedo planes, darken the sky over the harbor. The sound grows to a deafening roar. On the Arizona's deck, Seaman Alan Bowman looks up confused. Some mistake them for American planes in exercises. The confusion lasts mere seconds. "Those are Jap planes," shouts gunner's mate Russell Warner. "This is no drill." 0755. The first bombs fall. The water around the battleships erupts in violent geysers. Anti-aircraft gunner John Anderson feels the ship lurch beneath his feet as the first torpedoes strike neighboring vessels. He scrambles to his station, bare feet slipping on the deck. The ship's alarm begins to wail. Men pour from below decks, many half-dressed, disoriented, some still wiping sleep from their eyes. "General quarters, all hands, man your battle stations." The boatswain's pipe shrills through the PA system. Men who were peacefully eating breakfast moments before are now running through narrow passageways. Some will never reach their stations. Radio technician Raymond Garner reaches the communications room to find it already filling with smoke. "Where's the fire?" he shouts to a passing damage control party. "Everywhere," comes the response. "The whole harbor's under attack." The Arizona's anti-aircraft batteries begin to return fire. The percussion of the guns is deafening. Brass shell casings rain on the deck, hot enough to burn bare skin. Gunner Martin Matthews feels the heat through his shoes as he loads another round. His ears ring painfully from the continuous firing. Sweat stings his eyes, but he dare not pause to wipe it away. "Keep feeding me shells," he shouts to his ammunition handler. "Don't stop for anything." The young sailor beside him, just 18, nods wordlessly. His face is chalk white, but his hands are steady. 20 seconds later, a strafing run from a Japanese Zero will cut him nearly in half. Matthews will continue loading alone, his dead comrade at his feet. 0800. From the signal bridge, Ensign James Miller watches as torpedoes strike the USS Oklahoma on the Arizona's port side. The massive battleship begins to list immediately. Men jump from her decks as she rolls. Some make it into the water. Others are crushed as the ship capsizes. "Dear God," Miller whispers, then louder to his signalman. "Get those flags up. Signal all ships. Enemy air raid. This is not a drill." Miller doesn't know it yet, but his signals will never be completed. In 6 minutes, he and his entire signal crew will be vaporized. Below decks, in the engineering spaces, Chief Water Tender Ernest B. Craft feels the ship's shudder as near misses rock the Arizona. Water begins to spray from rivets, stressed beyond their limits. Steam lines groan. The air grows hotter, harder to breathe. "Secure those valves," Beecraft orders his men. "If those steam lines rupture, we're cooked alive." The men work feverishly, knowing that superheated steam can kill as surely as Japanese bombs. None of them will survive the next 10 minutes. 8:06. A 1,760-pound bomb drops toward the Arizona. Japanese pilot Noboru Kanai, flying high above the harbor, releases his deadly payload and banks away, never seeing the devastation he's about to cause. The projectile, converted from a naval artillery shell, penetrates the forward deck. For a microsecond, there is eerie silence. Then hell opens. The bomb detonates in the forward ammunition magazine. Over 1 million pounds of gunpowder ignite instantaneously. The explosion lifts the massive battleship out of the water. The forward part of the vessel disintegrates in a column of flame that rises over 500 feet into the air. The concussive force is felt miles away. Windows shatter across the harbor. The blast wave knocks sailors off their feet on neighboring ships. Seaman Donald Stratton is engulfed in flames. His cotton uniform ignites. His skin blisters and peels away in seconds. The pain is beyond comprehension. He is burning alive, yet somehow conscious, somehow moving. The anti-aircraft director where he stands is a furnace of twisted metal. 5 other men burn with him, their screams indistinguishable from his own. "Roll! Try to roll!" Stratton can barely hear the shout from gunner's mate George Frainer, whose own flesh is charring black. But there is nowhere to roll, no escape from the flames that seem to feed on their bodies. Below decks, hundreds die instantly as compartments collapse or flood. Others find themselves trapped as watertight doors automatically seal. Darkness. Rising water. The ship's electricity fails. Emergency lights cast a hellish red glow through smoke-filled passageways. Men crawl blindly, lungs burning, searching for ways out that no longer exist. In the forward mess compartment, Cook Third Class Walter Simonson and 30 other men find themselves sealed in. The compartment begins to flood, but not quickly enough to douse the fires that spread from above. Steam builds as water meets red-hot metal. The men press themselves against the highest corner of the tilting compartment. "The door! Get to the door!" someone shouts. "It's sealed," Simonson answers, his voice unnaturally calm. "Automatic lockdown. We need to wait for damage control." But damage control will never reach them. The water rises. The steam scalds. The men begin to pray, then to scream, then to weep. Simonson's body will be identified 3 months later only by his dental records. Seaman James Foster, trapped in a flooding compartment, feels the rising water reach his chest, then his neck. In total darkness, he and 7 others press their faces against the ceiling, gasping for the last inches of air. The water is warm from the fires raging above. Foster hears the prayers and sobs of men around him grow quiet, one by one. The water reaches his chin. "Our Father, who art in heaven." Foster begins. He will never finish the prayer. On the deck, what remains of it, sailors who survived the initial blast face an impossible choice: stay aboard the burning ship or jump into water covered with burning oil slicks. Those who jump find the water offers no escape. The surface is a floating inferno. Men thrash in the burning oil, their skins sloughing off, their lungs searing as they gasp through flames for air. Pharmacist, mate second class Albert Raymond, sees a man's surface, gulping air. The sailor's face is unrecognizable, cooked by heat and flames. Yet somehow the man is still alive, still conscious. His eyes find Raymond's, pleading. Then he slips beneath the burning surface. Raymond will suffer nightmares about those eyes for decades. Cook Third Class Sator Sati, Wardell, witnesses a sailor climb over the railing, his uniform completely ablaze. The man doesn't jump but simply stands there, a human torch, before collapsing on the deck. Wardell will never forget the man's expression, not pain, but a strange, distant calm, as if his mind had already fled his dying body. 8:10, just 4 minutes after the bomb hit, the USS Arizona is a vision from Dante's Inferno. Black smoke billows thousands of feet into the sky. Flames shoot from broken windows and torn hull plates. The moans of twisting metal sound disturbingly like human screams, because they mingle with actual human screams. On the quarterdeck, Lieutenant Commander Samuel Fuqua organizes evacuation efforts. Though knocked unconscious by the initial explosion, he has recovered and now stands amid chaos, issuing clear commands. His uniform is blackened with oil and blood, yet his voice remains steady. "Abandon ship! All hands, abandon ship! Help the wounded if you can, but get off this vessel now!" Men follow his orders, helping burned comrades toward the railings, toward the small boats that approach despite the danger. Fuqua will remain aboard until the last survivor leaves, earning the Medal of Honor for his actions this day. Seaman Stratton, still burning, sees salvation. On the repair ship, USS Vestal, moored alongside, boatswain's mate Alan Winns has thrown a rope across the widening gap between the vessels. Despite burns over 70% of his body, Stratton grasps the rope. The pain as the rough hemp touches his raw flesh nearly causes him to black out. Hand over hand, he begins to move, suspended 45 feet above the flaming water. "Don't look down," Stratton hears someone shout. "Just keep moving." The skin of his hands sticks to the rope, peeling away with each movement. He can smell his own flesh burning. Yet he continues, driven by a will to survive that transcends the agony of his body. Radioman Third Class Lauren Bruner follows Stratton. His lungs damaged by superheated air, each breath is agony. The rope cuts into his burned hands, but the alternative is certain death. Behind him, 4 more men wait their turn, each suffering catastrophic burns. Gunner Matthews, the last in line, watches as Japanese aircraft continue to strafe the harbor. Bullets ping off metal around them, sending up sparks. "Hurry!" Matthews urges those ahead of him. "They're coming around again." A Japanese fighter appears through the smoke, machine guns blazing. Bullets stitch the water, then the vessel's hull, then the rope itself. Fibers part. The rope holds, barely. Matthews will be the last man to cross before it finally breaks, stranding others on the doomed Arizona. 8:15. Across the harbor, the USS Oklahoma has capsized. Hundreds of men are trapped inside the overturned hull. In darkness, they tap desperately on the steel bulkheads with wrenches, flashlights, anything they can find. The rhythmic tapping echoes through the harbor, a macabre counterpoint to the explosions and gunfire above. Inside the Oklahoma, Fireman Second Class Walter Nakashima listens to water slowly filling the compartment. The space is inverted. What was floor is now ceiling. What was ceiling, now floor. The air grows stale. Men strike the hull methodically. 3 short taps, 3 long, 3 short. SOS. Over and over. "Do you think they hear us?" asks a voice in the darkness. "They hear us," Nakashima answers, not believing his own words. "They'll cut through. Just save your breath." The tapping continues for hours, then days. 32 men will be rescued from the Oklahoma's hull by sailors who cut through the steel from outside. 429 men will die inside, many during the slow flooding, others from lack of oxygen, a few by their own hands when hope finally abandons them. On the USS Nevada, the only battleship to get underway during the attack, sailors watch in horror as the Arizona burns less than 500 yards away. They see tiny figures jumping from the flaming decks. Some hit the water and disappear immediately. Others struggle briefly before succumbing to flames or wounds. Ensign Joseph Taussig, officer of the deck on the Nevada, watches the Arizona through binoculars. He sees men silhouetted against the flames, sees them fall or jump, sees some caught in midair by secondary explosions. "Get us moving," Taussig orders the helmsman. "We're sitting targets here." The Nevada begins to move, the only capital ship to do so during the attack. Japanese pilots immediately target her, seeking to sink her in the channel and block the harbor. Taussig will lose his left leg to a bomb blast but remain at his post until relieved, saving his ship and the harbor exit. Stratton reaches the Vestal, his body a map of third-degree burns. His ears are nearly burned off. The skin of his arms hangs in ribbons. As Winns pulls him aboard, chunks of Stratton's flesh come away in his hands. Stratton will later recall the strange detachment he felt, as if watching someone else's body being destroyed. "Water," Stratton gasps. "Please, water." "No water for burn victims," says a corpsman who appears beside him. I'm sorry, it could kill you. The corpsman injects Stratton with morphine, then moves to the next burned sailor pulled from the Arizona. 08:18. In the burning wreckage of the Arizona's deck, Chief Petty Officer John Wheeler organizes a fire brigade. Despite the ship being clearly doomed, despite the continuing air attack, despite the danger of further magazine explosions, Wheeler and his men form a bucket line. They fight to contain fires threatening to spread to parts of the ship where survivors might still be trapped. Pass them along, keep them coming, Wheeler shouts as buckets move from hand to hand. We've got men below who need more time. The seawater they throw on the flames seems to evaporate before making any difference. Yet they persist. Wheeler knows that every minute they buy might mean another life saved from the compartments below. Lieutenant Commander Fuqua, the ship's damage control officer, remains aboard the devastated vessel. Knocked unconscious by the initial blast, he awakes to find himself surrounded by charred bodies and dying men. With extraordinary calm, he directs rescue efforts and the abandonment of the ship. His white uniform is stained with blood, some his own, most from the men he helps carry to safety. "Sir, you need to leave," a young ensign shouts to Fuqua. "The ship could blow again any minute." "Then you should leave, ensign," Fuqua replies evenly. "I'll be along when my job here is done." The ensign stays. Both men continue pulling wounded from the wreckage, loading them into boats that dart in through the burning oil. The ensign, William Muhlenhard, will later receive the Silver Star for his actions. Fuqua, the Medal of Honor. 8:25. The Arizona's decks are so hot that shoes melt into the steel. Men crawl rather than walk, both to avoid machine gun fire from still strafing Japanese planes, and because the soles of their feet are burned away. Those helping the wounded must sometimes peel their hands from the victim's raw flesh when they set them down. Seaman First Class Donald Graham carries a badly burned shipmate toward the railings. The man moans with each movement, the sound inhuman, animalistic. Graham feels the man's weight suddenly lessen. "Hang on, buddy," Graham says. "Almost there." But when Graham reaches the railing and looks down at his burden, he sees he carries only the top half of the sailor. The rest has been left behind somewhere on the scorched deck. The sailor is dead, mercifully unaware of his condition. Graham gently places the remains in a rescue boat, then vomits over the side of the ship. Below decks, in the few compartments not flooded or consumed by fire, trapped men wait for rescue that cannot come. The Arizona is mortally wounded. Her back is broken. Oil from ruptured bunkers spreads across the water and ignites, creating a ring of fire around the dying ship. In the aft magazine, gunner's mate Clayton Decker and 5 others have sealed themselves inside the armored space. The magazine remains intact, unexploded, but smoke seeps through ventilation systems not designed to withstand such an inferno. "Air's getting bad," Decker says, his voice raspy. "We need to try for it." "Open that door and the fire comes in," replies boatswain's mate William Turner. "We wait for damage control." But as minutes pass, the air grows thinner. Men begin to cough, then to gasp. Finally, Decker moves to the armored door. "I'm going to crack it," he announces, "just enough to see if there's a way out." When he opens the door, superheated air rushes in. The men behind Decker see his uniform ignite, see his body silhouetted against the bright flame, see him stagger back. Then the flash fire engulfs them all. 6 more names for the Arizona Memorial. Hospital Corpsman Second Class Thomas Miller transforms the Arizona's sick bay into a triage center. With limited supplies and overwhelming casualties, he makes impossible choices. Men with burns over 30% of their bodies are given morphine and made comfortable. They will not survive without modern burn units that don't exist in 1941. Miller focuses on those he might save, working through tears of frustration and grief. "Hold him down," Miller instructs a pharmacist's mate as they treat a sailor with severe leg wounds. "This is going to hurt." The wounded man screams as Miller applies a tourniquet, then sobs as the pain subsides. "Am I going to lose it, Doc?" Miller meets his eyes. "I'm going to do everything I can," he says, not answering directly. The leg is already dead, black with compartment syndrome. "The man will lose it. if he survives at all. 8:30. The second wave of Japanese aircraft arrives. Another 171 planes target the already devastated harbor. The Arizona, already shattered, offers no further target value, but nearby ships still fighting back come under renewed attack. The men of the fire brigade duck as bullets strike around them, but do not abandon their efforts. "Keep at it," Chief Wheeler shouts as planes roar overhead. "They can only kill us once." The dark humor raises a few grim smiles. The bucket line continues. They have contained the fires spreading aft, perhaps saving dozens of lives. For men already burned or wounded, each minute means a better chance of reaching medical care before shock and infection set in. Stratton, now aboard the Vestal receiving emergency treatment, watches in horror as his ship continues to burn. He can still make out figures moving on the decks. From his position, he can see men trapped in gun turrets, pounding on the metal, unable to escape as flames advance toward them. The Vestal's doctor gives him little chance to survive the night. "You're pretty badly cooked, son," the doctor says, injecting another dose of morphine. "But I've seen miracles before." Stratton will prove to be one of those miracles. Despite burns so severe that he must learn to walk again, he will survive, recover, and re-enlist, returning to combat duty in the Pacific Theater before the war's end. 8:35. The harbor water is now a toxic soup of oil, blood, and floating bodies. Sailors who jump to escape the fires find themselves swimming through this nightmare medium. Some are pulled under by suction as damaged ships settle. Others succumb to wounds or exhaustion. Still others are killed by strafing aircraft that target men in the water. Machinist's mate First Class Robert Fife swims through oil so thick it coats his lungs with each gasping breath. He pulls along a wounded shipmate who can no longer swim. The man's blood leaves a crimson trail in the black oil. Fife will reach shore with his burden, only to watch the man die minutes later on the beach. "I tried," Fife whispers to the dead sailor. "God knows I tried." A corpsman gently places a handkerchief over the dead man's face. "You got him to land," he tells Fife. "That's more than most got today." Fife nods, but the comfort is hollow. Around him, the beach is crowded with wounded and dying men. Some scream. Others lie ominously silent. The sand is black with oil, red with blood. The air reeks of burning fuel, burning wood, burning flesh. 0840. The USS Arizona continues to sink deeper into the harbor mud. As she settles, air trapped in lower compartments is forced out through ruptured hull plates, creating an eerie moaning sound. Men on nearby vessels will later describe it as the ship crying. Along with this air come bubbles of oil that will continue to seep from the Arizona's bunkers for decades, known today as the Tears of the Arizona. Aboard the fleet tug Navajo, Seaman George Sullivan watches the Arizona through binoculars. He can see figures still moving on the less damaged aft section of the ship. Some wave for rescue, others sit or lie motionless. "Can we get closer?" Sullivan asks his chief. "There are still men alive over there." The chief shakes his head. "Captain says the magazine could go any second. We'd lose our boat and all hands." He doesn't add what both men know, that the remaining figures on the Arizona are likely doomed whether they reach them or not. Sullivan will watch as the flames gradually claim the remaining survivors. He will suffer from nightmares for years, always wondering if they could have saved one more, always hearing phantom cries for help across the water. 8:45. In the forward section of the Arizona, now mostly underwater, 37 men have found an air pocket in a storage compartment. They can hear the ship breaking up around them. Water seeps in steadily. They know that rescue is unlikely, that cutting through the hull would take hours they don't have. Marine Private Wendell Rossiter leads the trapped men in prayer. Their voices, shaky at first, grow stronger as they accept their fate. "The Lord is my shepherd," they recite together. "I shall not want." One by one, they introduce themselves, share stories of home, of wives and children, of parents who will receive telegrams in the coming days. They are no longer sailors and Marines, but simply men facing the end together. When the water finally rises to claim them, they are still singing hymns, their voices audible to rescuers above who can do nothing to reach them in time. On the still exposed portions of the deck, Chief Wheeler's fire brigade works doggedly. They have saved dozens of wounded men, passing them to boats that dart in despite the danger. Wheeler himself suffers burns and shrapnel wounds, but refuses to leave his post. When urged to save himself, he reportedly says, "As long as one man is alive on this ship, my duty is here." Wheeler will survive the day, one of the last to leave the Arizona, but the burns and smoke inhalation damage his lungs permanently. He will spend 3 months in hospital, then return to duty, haunted by the men he couldn't save. 900. The attack begins to slacken. The Japanese aircraft, having expended their ordnance, turn back toward their carriers. The sky over Pearl Harbor, black with smoke, begins to clear enough to reveal the devastation below. 8 battleships damaged or sunk, 11 other naval vessels damaged, 188 aircraft destroyed, and the dead, 1,177 men from the Arizona alone. Rescue efforts intensify as the air attack subsides. Small boats crisscross the harbor, picking up survivors from the water and ferrying the wounded to shore. Hospital staff, overwhelmed by casualties, set up triage stations on lawns and sidewalks. Civilians join military personnel in rendering aid. Sheets, tablecloths, and curtains are torn up for bandages. Private automobiles become ambulances. At IEA Naval Hospital, the first wave of wounded arrives. Doctors and nurses, many still in church clothes or pajamas, having rushed to duty at the first news, work without rest. Operating rooms run continuously. Blood donors line up outside, sleeves already rolled up. The hospital's 250 beds fill within the first hour. Corridors become wards. The less seriously wounded sit on floors, leaning against walls, waiting patiently for care. "Burns," mutters a surgeon, moving from one patient to the next. "So many burns. We don't have enough sulfa. We don't have enough morphine." But they work with what they have. Nurses cut away charred uniforms, apply ointments, wrap bandages, administer precious pain medication where most needed. Corpsmen carry endless stretchers, empty bedpans, hold men down during procedures when anesthesia runs short. 9:15. Lieutenant Commander Fuqua still stands on what remains of the Arizona's quarterdeck. He directs the final evacuation of survivors. His once white uniform is now black with oil and blood. His calm voice cuts through the chaos, providing a final anchor of discipline and duty as the ship dies beneath his feet. The motor launches full, Fuqua tells the men gathered around him. "Next boat comes alongside, you go. That's an order." "What about you, sir?" asks a young seaman. "I'll be on the last boat," Fuqua answers. He doesn't say that he's staying to ensure there is a last boat, that someone remains in authority until the final man leaves. In the harbor waters, some men have been swimming for over an hour, keeping afloat despite wounds, burns, and exhaustion. Pharmacist's mate second-class John Anderson pulls sailor after sailor from the oily water onto a motor launch. Some are so badly burned that their skin comes away with their life jackets. Anderson administers morphine, his supply dwindling, his own hands shaking from what he's witnessed. "Stay with me," Anderson tells a semi-conscious sailor as he checks for a pulse. "Focus on my voice. What's your name? Your hometown? Tell me about your girl." The questions are medical, designed to assess consciousness, but they're also human, connecting the dying man to life, to identity, to the world beyond this hellscape. The sailor's lips move, but no sound emerges. Anderson leans closer. The man whispers a name, "Mary," then is silent forever. 0930. The last organized group leaves the Arizona. Chief Wheeler, having saved dozens of lives, finally allows himself to be taken off the ship. His fire brigade, against all odds and military logic, has contained fires that threatened to reach the aft magazine. Had they not succeeded, the second explosion might have killed hundreds more in the harbor. "We did what we could, Chief," says a young sailor beside Wheeler as their boat pulls away from the dying ship. "We did our best." Wheeler nods, watching the Arizona recede behind them, smoke still pouring from her broken hull. "Our best," he echoes. "God help us, it wasn't enough. The boat continues towards shore, passing floating bodies, men clinging to debris, patches of burning oil. Wheeler stares straight ahead, refusing to look at what surrounds them. The young sailor vomits over the side, then wipes his mouth with a blackened hand. "It's all right, son," Wheeler says. "Though nothing is all right, nothing will ever be all right again. We're heading home." 10 o'clock. The USS Arizona has settled into the harbor mud. Only her superstructure remains above water. Bodies float in the oil slicks surrounding her. Some are identifiable. Many are not. Recovery teams will spend weeks retrieving remains, often having to pry burned bodies from wreckage or dive into oil-filled compartments to reach the dead. The survivors begin to be processed, counted, identified. Men wander the shoreline, calling names, searching for friends and shipmates. Some find each other, most do not. The lucky ones suffer cuts, bruises, minor burns. The less fortunate lie in hospital wards or temporary morgues. At Pearl Harbor Naval Hospital, doctors work into their 24th straight hour. Burn cases fill every bed. The smell is distinctive and terrible. Charred flesh, infection, antiseptic, excrement. Men moan, men scream, men weep, men die, despite all efforts to save them. A nurse wipes sweat from her forehead, leaving a streak of blood. "I can't tell anymore," she says to a doctor passing by. "I can't tell which ones will make it." "The quiet ones," the doctor replies, his voice flat with exhaustion. "Worry about the ones who've stopped fighting." Stratton, against all medical predictions, clings to life. His burns are so severe that doctors can find few places to administer intravenous fluids. He will spend months in hospitals, endure countless surgeries, and learn to walk again. Remarkably, after his recovery, he will re-enlist and return to combat duty in the Pacific, a testimony to both his courage and his desire for vengeance. 1,300. The final death toll is still being calculated, but it will reach 2,403 Americans killed and 1,178 wounded. Families across America are still unaware that their sons, husbands, and fathers are among the casualties. The first telegrams will begin arriving the following day. The Navy Department deeply regrets to inform you. As evening falls over Pearl Harbor, fires still burn on the water. The Arizona glows with internal fires that will smolder for days. Rescue and recovery operations continue by searchlight. In hospital wards, the wounded moan and cry out. Some call for mothers, others beg for water or morphine. Many ask about friends and shipmates, questions the nurses cannot or will not answer. "Where's Jonesy?" asks a bandaged sailor, his eyes covered with gauze, his arms suspended in treatment frames to keep the burned skin from touching anything. "Did Jonesy make it?" The nurse checks the chart, sees the note, USS Arizona. She knows the odds. Of the Arizona's crew of 1,512, only 335 survived. "Try to rest," she tells the sailor, not answering directly. "Save your strength." The sailor persists. "Please, I need to know about Jonesy." The nurse holds a straw to his cracked lips, helps him drink. "I'll find out," she promises, though she knows she likely never will. Too many records were destroyed. Too many bodies will never be recovered. Too many men simply vanished in the explosion or flames. December 8, 1941. The nation learns of the attack. President Roosevelt addresses Congress. Yesterday, December 7, 1941. A date which will live in infamy. The Arizona's dead represent nearly half of all Americans killed in the attack. For 1,102 of them, the ship becomes their permanent tomb. The survivors begin their long struggle with what will later be recognized as severe post-traumatic stress disorder. Many report the same recurring nightmare. Trapped below decks as water rises, pounding on hatches that will never open, breathing air that grows hotter and thinner until they wake, gasping, sheets soaked with sweat. Chief Wheeler returns to his home in San Diego after 3 months in hospital. His wife meets him at the door, embraces him, then steps back, startled by the change in him. He has aged decades in months. His lungs, damaged by smoke, give his breathing a permanent rasp. He wakes at night, shouting orders to men long dead. He cannot tolerate the smell of cooking meat. He will never speak directly of what he witnessed, except during nightmares, when the words pour out, describing horrors his waking mind refuses to revisit. Stratton will later recall, "The sounds and smells never leave you. Burning flesh has a distinctive odor. Once you've smelled it, you can never forget it. And the screams of men burning alive, those follow you into sleep for the rest of your life." During his long recovery at Mare Island Naval Hospital, Stratton endures excruciating debridement treatments, the removal of dead tissue from his extensive burns. Nurses soak his bandages, then peel them away, taking skin with them. He bites down on leather straps to avoid screaming. He loses 65 pounds. His body is mapped with scar tissue. He must learn to walk again, to use hands permanently curled by scar contracture. Yet his first question upon regaining consciousness is when he can return to duty. "You're done with this war, son," a doctor tells him. "You've given enough." But Stratton is not done. He will recover enough to receive a medical discharge, then immediately re-enlist, circumventing the medical screening with help from a sympathetic recruiter. He will return to sea duty, serve on the destroyer USS Stack, and participate in 8 major naval battles before the war's end. The burning of his body does not extinguish his determination. Chief Wheeler, despite his heroism in organizing the fire brigade that saved so many, will suffer from survivor's guilt until his death in 1976. His family reports that he never spoke of Pearl Harbor, except when having nightmares, during which he would call out names of men he couldn't save. "Jonesy, this way. Martinez, over here. Anderson, hang on." The names pour forth in sleep, each representing a man Wheeler feels he failed, though in truth his actions were extraordinarily heroic, saving dozens who would otherwise have perished. The psychological aftermath extends beyond those physically present. Families of the missing endure weeks of uncertainty before final confirmations come. Some bodies are never recovered, never identified. Some families receive telegrams reporting their loved ones missing, then killed in action, then incorrectly reported as surviving, before final confirmation of death. This administrative chaos compounds their grief. Martha Hennessy, mother of Seaman Robert Hennessy, receives 4 different telegrams over the course of December 1941. The first reports her son missing. The second, killed in action. The third, remarkably, lists him as wounded but recovering in hospital. The fourth confirms his death. She will keep all 4 telegrams until her own death in 1977, never fully accepting the loss of her only child. In the months following the attack, Navy divers continue to recover bodies from the sunken Arizona. The work is gruesome and dangerous. Decomposition in the warm water, combined with oil saturation, makes identification increasingly difficult. Eventually, the decision is made to leave the remaining dead in place. The ship becomes their coffin, the harbor their graveyard. Diver Edward Peterson descends to the Arizona daily throughout early 1942, searching for remains, for personal effects that might be returned to families, for anything to bring closure to the dead and comfort to the living. The worst part, Peterson will later recall, was knowing that each body we couldn't reach, couldn't recover, meant another family would never have certainty, never have a grave to visit, just an empty casket, a memory, and questions that would never be answered. Peterson develops decompression sickness from repeated dives. His hands tremble permanently afterward. He dreams of faces in the water, reaching toward him. He leaves the Navy in 1943, unable to continue the recovery work that haunts him day and night. The USS Arizona Memorial is dedicated in 1962, spanning the sunken hull of the battleship. Oil still seeps from her ruptured bunkers, creating rainbow-hued slicks on the harbor surface. The tears of the Arizona that continue more than 80 years after her sinking. Visitors to the memorial observe a strict code of silence, respecting the 1,102 men who remain entombed below. For the survivors, the horror never truly ended. Their burned bodies healed, leaving extensive scarring both physical and psychological. Many turned to alcohol to quiet the memories. Others suffered failed marriages, as wives could not understand the men their husbands had become. Some, like Stratton, found purpose in returning to duty, in seeing the war through to its conclusion. In 1981, medical researchers studying Arizona survivors documented a phenomenon they hadn't anticipated. Many reported still smelling burning flesh and oil, when there was no possible source for these odors. The researchers concluded these were not hallucinations, but actual olfactory memories, triggered by stress or certain environmental cues, the brain's way of preserving the trauma in sensory form. It comes without warning, reported survivor John Davenport, 60 years after the attack. I'll be having dinner, or watching television, or just walking down the street, and suddenly I'm back there. I smell the oil. I smell the flames. I smell my friends burning. And I have to stop whatever I'm doing until it passes. Some survivors couldn't escape the memories except through self-medication. Boatswain's mate Raymond Garza, who helped pull men from the water on December 7, spent 30 years battling alcoholism before finding sobriety through a veterans support group in 1975. The booze muffled it, Garza explained in a 1995 interview. It was the only way I could sleep without the nightmares. But eventually, you realize you're just adding one nightmare to another. So you face it. You live with it. You carry those boys with you, but you keep moving forward. The last living crew member of the USS Arizona, Lou Conter, passed away in April 2023 at age 101. With his death, the first-hand accounts of the horror experienced that December morning pass into history. But the memorial, the sunken ship, and the oil that still rises from her, one drop at a time, ensure that the sacrifices made that day remain in living memory. In his final interview, given months before his death, Conter reflected on the ship that shaped his life and claimed so many of his friends. People call us heroes, but we weren't. We were just sailors doing our duty. The heroes are the ones still aboard the Arizona. They're the ones who never had the chance to live the lives we lived, to see their children grow up, to know peace again. They paid the full measure. The least we can do is remember. Each day, at the USS Arizona Memorial, park rangers collect the names of any Pearl Harbor survivors visiting the site. These names are announced to all visitors present, who invariably respond with applause and often tears. The rangers then read from the final paragraph of a letter written by survivor Donald Stratton before his death in 2020. When you visit the memorial, look down at the ship. Look down at the oil that still seeps up from her tanks. Remember that each drop represents a tear for a shipmate lost, for a future never lived, for the price of the freedom we all enjoy. And when you leave that sacred place, take with you not just the memory of tragedy, but the obligation to ensure such sacrifice is never forgotten and never made in vain. The oil continues to rise, one drop at a time. The Arizona continues to weep. The dead remain on eternal duty. And the horror of that December morning, the real horror, not of supernatural monsters, but of human violence and human courage, echoes across the decades, a reminder of what was lost and what was preserved at incalculable cost. Thank you for listening. If you are also proud of the bravery of our soldiers, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on new historical stories.